Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in just for a short time with a story. It comes in the 39th year after the children of Israel have been wandering in the desert wilderness because of their rebellion against God. It follows another rebellion that happened among the people where some Levites rose up, the sons of Korah and others along with him, rose up against Moses and Aaron, saying that they didn't have any right to lead the people and they were leading in the wrong way, all kinds of things. Korah called them the assembly of the Lord. That was the name he gave the people. If they weren't acting like an assembly of the Lord in that point in time, they were rebellious. The rebellion ended with a lot of people dying because of the rebellion against God. Some died before the Lord holding their censers, and some died in a really dramatic way where the ground opened up and swallowed tents and families and belongings and closed over them again. It was kind of shocking. But their rebellion was really wrong-spirited. Indeed, it went further than that, and another 14,000 people died with a plague. So it was a huge, devastating thing that happened. This happened right before this story. So that's where our story starts. Now the children of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin, and they stayed in Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. Now, there was no water for the congregation or the livestock to drink. So the whole congregation rose up against Moses and Aaron, and they contended with Moses and said, "If only we had died in the wilderness before the Lord with our brothers. Why have you brought us in this wilderness, us, the assembly of the Lord, that we and our livestock die? Why did you make us come up out of Egypt to bring us this evil place? It is not a place with grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Moses and Aaron left the assembly and went to the door of the tabernacle and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take in your hand the rod and assemble the people at the rock. Speak to the rock, and it will yield its water for the congregation and the livestock to drink." So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the people together, and then Moses spoke to the people and said, "Hear now, you rebels, must we bring water out of the rock?" And then Moses took the rod and struck the rock twice, and water gushed forth, and the people and the livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe me and did not show me as holy in the eyes of the people, you will not lead this people into the land I have promised." This was the water of Meribah, where the Israelites contended with the Lord. But the Lord proved himself as holy among them. That's the end of the story. It's a long story. That's why I want to do 2 weeks on it. So this week I want to focus just on the first part of the story. So at the beginning of the story, we have them arriving in the wilderness of Zin and camping at Kadesh. And Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron, dies there and is buried there. And we're told there's no water in that place. So the congregation rises up against Moses and Aaron, and they contend with Moses, and they say, this is what the congregation says: "If only we died before the Lord with our brothers. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness so that we and our livestock die? Why did you make us come up out of Egypt to bring us this evil place? It is not a place of grain and figs and vines and pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." At this, Moses and Aaron left the assembly and fell on their faces at the door of the tabernacle. So for today, I just want to stop there because I want to focus on this question with you guys. Well, first of all, I don't know, what might this have felt like to be a huge group of people, millions of people, and come into a desert location where there is no water? Now, mind you, you're in a group of people that has been following God for 39 years and has so many stories of God's provision and presence and how God is constantly offering provision to the people. But what might it have felt like, do you think, to be faced with no water? And did the congregation have some other way they could have responded to this instead of how they did? You know, isn't it interesting? The first thing out of their mouths is, if only we died before the Lord with our brothers. These are the ones that were killed by fire and killed by being swallowed by the earth. Can you imagine that they said that it would be better if they died in such horrible ways? But that's the first thing out of their mouths. What might this tell us about this people? That the first thing they say is, if only one died like that, instead of by thirst. But they're not dying yet. They just know there's no water. It's interesting that they jump. Isn't it interesting that they jump all the way from no water to, oh, we're going to die here. And then they call themselves the assembly of the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord to this wilderness so that we and our livestock die? They call themselves the assembly of the Lord. How might you expect a group called the assembly of the Lord to behave? What might be something that would be a particular thing that you'd see among them? What behavior might you expect from the assembly of the Lord? Maybe, I don't know, prayer, worship, praise, faithfulness, joy? What are the characteristics of an assembly of the Lord? Are those them, or are you thinking of others? Are they manifesting such characteristics in the behavior that they're showing? And then they say this, why did you make us come up out of Egypt to bring us this evil place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there's no water to drink. Now, remind you, this is 39 years after leaving Egypt. The whole desert wanderings would last 40 years, so they're 1 year out from the very end. This means most of the people have died that came out of Egypt. In fact, everybody 20 years and older that was a part of that rebellion that happened when they first left Egypt, that happened in this very place, in Kadesh, when they sent the spies in and they came back and they gave the false report. 10 of them gave a poor report and they rebelled against God. It's 39 years. So what have the older people of the congregation been telling the younger people for all those years, that these people now, 39 years later, who are the younger people that may not have even experienced Egypt at all, they're the ones saying this place is not a place of grain and figs and vines and pomegranates, but they were ones that have never seen those things. Many of them have never experienced them whatsoever. They've not even seen crops because they've been in the wilderness. They've been under the provision of God with daily manna and water that he provided in the wilderness and the animals from their flocks that they ate. They have been provided for these 39 years, and they look back to something they've never experienced as saying evidence of why this is a horrible, evil place. What might this tell us about the people? And have you ever been in a place where you looked back and hearkened back to something that happened a long time before as evidence that God was not faithful now? Have you ever gone back to a negative story and rehearsed a negative story rather than the positive one? What if the elders in Israel had been rehearsing the stories of God's deliverance, God's mercy, God's presence, God's power, God's might over those 39 years? How might the assembly of the Lord have behaved at this point in time had that been the case? But apparently they'd been rehearsing what they lacked, what was missing for all those years. So today, what are you rehearsing? What's coming out of your mouth? Are you catching the words you're using and the words you're saying about your life? Are you saying things that are detracting from the very life you have? That's all I wanted to say. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you remember how much God is with you, providing for you, and loves you in the middle of your life as you follow God in this world. Hey, thanks for listening.